There is no sound. That is the first thing you need to understand about the B-2 Spirit. Every other aircraft in this war announced itself. The A-10 rattled the sky with a cannon that physically slows the airplane when it fires. The B-1B shook the ground at Whiteman Air Force Base in South Dakota before it even left American airspace. The F-35 lit up Iranian radar operators for a fraction of a second, just long enough to confirm they were already dead. The B-2 gives you nothing. No radar return, no infrared bloom, no acoustic warning. It is a 722 feet of flying wing crossing the most contested airspace on the planet, and the only evidence it was ever there is a crater where something used to be. The B-1B script on this channel ended with a question. Iran buried its missiles under mountains. The B-1B carried the GBU-72, a 5,000-pound bunker buster making its combat debut in Epic Fury, and confirmed secondary explosions from below the surface. Confirmation that the weapon had penetrated to underground ammunition storage before detonating. The B-1B reduced Iran's usable missile stockpile from 2,500 to roughly 1,000. It destroyed 700 ballistic missiles in their storage bunkers. It neutralized anti-ship missile infrastructure along the Strait of Hormuz coastline. But the deepest missile cities did not fall. Iran spent 30 years engineering that outcome specifically. The engineers who designed those complexes ran the same payload calculations every American warplaner ran. They knew what the heaviest conventional penetrator in the American inventory weighed. They built deeper than it could reach. And when the B-1B's GBU-72s collapsed the entrances and destroyed the shallower sections of each complex, the deepest chambers, the ones housing the anti-ship missiles designed to close the strait, stayed intact. That is where this story begins. Not with the B-2, with what Iran built to make the B-2 necessary. The IRGC calls them missile cities, and that name is not marketing. It is a description of scale. Iran's underground military program started during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, when Iraqi Scuds taught Tehran something that no amount of surface-to-air missiles could unlearn. If it is above ground, it can be found. If it can be found, it can be targeted. If it can be targeted, it is already gone. After Desert Storm in 1991, that lesson sharpened into obsession. The world watched American precision weapons dismantle Iraq's entire military in 42 days. Everything above ground, gone. Iran's generals watched the same footage and reached the same conclusion. The only weapon you cannot lose is the one you bury deep enough. So they buried everything. Not bunkers, tunnel networks stretching kilometers beneath mountain ranges and along the Hormuz coastline. Underground launch chambers large enough to store, fuel, and fire ballistic missiles without ever surfacing them. The complexes near the strait shelter the Kalish Fars, Iran's anti-ship ballistic missile, designed specifically to strike moving vessels in the confined waters of the strait. Iran did not need to close Hormuz permanently. It needed to threaten closure credibly enough that the cost of any American military action became unacceptable. For 30 years, the math worked. Two problems protected those complexes simultaneously. The weapons heavy enough to reach the deepest chambers did not exist, and the aircraft capable of carrying them could not survive the air defenses protecting them. Iran was right that solving both at once was nearly impossible. They were wrong that it was impossible permanently. The B-1B solved half of it in Epic Fury. 700 ballistic missiles destroyed in their bunkers, anti-ship infrastructure along Hormuz heavily degraded, but 5,000 pounds only reaches so far into rock. The Iranian engineers did not need to know what aircraft was coming. They needed to know the weight of the heaviest penetrator in the American inventory and build 10 feet deeper, which is exactly what they did. The GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator is the answer to that calculation. 30,000 pounds of hardened steel at terminal velocity. Mass times velocity produces kinetic energy at a scale that drives the weapon through rock and reinforced concrete that would stop a lighter penetrator entirely. The delayed fuse triggers at depth, and the detonation happens inside the structure, collapsing the tunnel from within rather than cratering the surface above it. Against the facilities near Hormuz, it reaches roughly 200 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. That is the gap the B-1B could not close. Only the B-2 can carry it. 2 per sortie, integrated specifically into the B-2's avionics. The combination was engineered as a system, and that system lives on 19 airframes. Getting the weapon there is one problem. Surviving long enough to drop it is another. The deepest missile cities near Hormuz were the most protected targets in the theater. Iran knew those complexes would draw the heaviest American weapons, so the air defenses around them were the last to be degraded. The B-52 carries 70,000 pounds of ordnance, but its radar cross-section is roughly 100 square meters. It was never a realistic option over those targets. The B-2's radar cross-section is approximately 0.1 square meters. A B-2 passing over an Iranian radar installation gives the operator a return lasting a fraction of a second if they see it at all. The flying wing eliminates the fuselage, tail surfaces, and engine nacelles that make conventional aircraft reflective. The inlets are shaped so radar cannot reach the turbine blades. Radar-absorbing materials cover the exterior. The exhaust suppresses infrared and radar signatures simultaneously. The B-2 manages every detectable signature at once. There is also something most coverage of this aircraft misses. The B-2 does not deploy forward. It flies from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Every other aircraft in Epic Fury required a visible forward posture. The B-1B's movement to RAF Fairford was photographed and read as a signal by every intelligence service paying attention. The B-2 sent no signal. It took off from Missouri, crossed the Atlantic on aerial refueling, and hit the target. No host nation knew the mission was happening before it happened. In the opening hours of Epic Fury, before Iran's air defenses were significantly degraded, B-2s struck the most defended command nodes in the country, not because the defenses were down, but because the B-2 does not need them to be. By the third week of Epic Fury, 70% of Iran's mobile launchers were destroyed. Drone and missile launch rates had fallen 90%, but the Khalij Fars missiles in the deepest complexes were not stored at the surface level. 3 target complexes. Entrances collapsed, shallower storage destroyed by the GBU-72, but the deep chambers intact. The launch shafts damaged, but not sealed. 2 B-2s flew the mission. 4 GBU-57s. One night, post-strike assessment confirmed secondary explosions at depths consistent with underground ammunition storage. Seismic monitoring registered detonations, consistent with the collapse of large subsurface structures. The launch shafts were sealed not from above, but from below, by the collapse of the tunnel networks supporting them. What 3 weeks of sustained operations had started, 2 aircraft finished in a single sortie. The honest assessment, the B-2 succeeded near Hormuz because Epic Fury had spent 3 weeks creating conditions for it. Iran does not operate the low-frequency radar systems Russia and China have developed specifically to detect stealth aircraft. Against a peer adversary with a modern integrated air defense system, that changes the equation significantly. The B-2 is being replaced by the B-21 Raider, stealthier, cheaper, harder to detect across a wider range of radar frequencies. The Air Force wants 100 of them. Against the threat China and Russia have built, it is a necessary aircraft. But the B-21's weapons bays are smaller. The GBU-57 does not fit. The Air Force is trading payload for stealth. And against surface targets, that is defensible. Against an underground facility built to require 30,000 pounds of penetrating ordnance at 200 feet of depth, precision does not change the physics. The tunnel does not care how accurately the weapon is guided. It cares how much it weighs. When the last B-2 retires, the United States will have the most advanced stealth bomber ever built and no aircraft capable of delivering the GBU-57 against a defended target. The A-10 was built to kill Soviet tanks. It never fought that war. In 2026, it is killing Iranian drones over Hormuz for $35,000 per shot. The B-1B was built to deliver nuclear weapons through Soviet airspace at low altitude. That mission never came. In 2026, it delivered more conventional ordnance against hardened targets in a single campaign than any bomber in history. The B-2 was built to slip through Soviet integrated air defenses on the opening night of a nuclear exchange. That mission never came either. In 2026, it flew through Iran's last surviving defenses and collapsed tunnel networks that 30 years of engineering had made unreachable. None of them were designed for what they just did. All of them were built around physics that did not change when the Cold War ended. The missile cities near Hormuz are buried. The The strait is open. 2 aircraft, 4 weapons, 1 night. And the airplane that just did that is scheduled for retirement before the end of this decade. The next time an adversary buries something deep enough that the GBU-57 is the only answer, the Air Force will have 100 aircraft that cannot carry it, and the memory of 19 that could. Subscribe to this channel. The sky is not empty. It is a battlefield with rules written in physics, and we are here to decode every one of them. The next equation is already being built.